The War Council chamber of Valara Prime was beautiful. Tall pillars of white stone reached toward a ceiling painted with stars. Light came through crystal windows and made everything glow like morning sun on water. The Valari people had built this place 10,000 years ago. They were very proud of it. Te-Ho stood in the corner of the room. He did not move. He did not speak. His heavy combat armor hummed quietly, and the sound was the only thing that told people he was alive inside that metal shell. The armor was old. It had dents and scratches and burn marks from battles on distant worlds. It was painted gray, simple, and plain, nothing like the beautiful things around him. The Valari were tall and graceful. Their skin was pale blue, and their eyes were large and golden. They moved like dancers even when they were just walking across a room. They wore long robes made of silk that changed color when they moved. They carried thin swords at their waists, more for show than for fighting. They looked at Teho the way someone might look at mud on their shoes. He was one of 12 human soldiers sent to Valara Prime by the Galactic Coalition. The Coalition was worried about the Keth Swarm, a terrible enemy that ate entire planets. They sent human soldiers to protect important worlds. The Valari did not ask for this protection. They did not want it. But the Coalition insisted. Commander Nari stood at the center of the room. She was tall even for a Valari, and her robes were deep purple, the color of royalty. Her golden eyes were sharp and cold. She was speaking to the other officers about defense plans, pointing at maps that floated in the air like ghosts. "The outer stations will serve as our first warning," she said. Her voice was smooth like silk. "Our fleet will engage any threat long before it reaches our atmosphere. We have nothing to fear." An old Velari sitting near the back raised his hand. This was Elder Sora, a woman who had lived for almost 800 years. Her face had many lines, and her eyes were tired but kind. "What about the human soldiers?" she asked. "Should we not include them in our plans?" The room went quiet. Several officers smiled in a way that was not friendly. Nari turned slowly and looked at Teho. Her lips curved into a smile that held no warmth. "The humans," she said, "are here because the Coalition does not trust us to defend ourselves. They sent us these guardians, wrapped in their primitive machines." She gestured at Teho's armor with one elegant hand. "Look at it. So much metal. So much noise. It is like they cannot survive without hiding inside a shell." Some officers laughed softly. "Our warriors need only their minds and their blades," Nari continued. "We have fought wars for longer than humanity has existed. We do not need creatures who live barely 100 years to teach us about survival." More laughter now. Someone called out, "Mayflies?" And the whole room seemed to find this very funny. Mayflies were insects that lived for only one day. It was what the Valari called humans when they wanted to be cruel. Teho did not move. Behind his dark visor, his face showed nothing. He had heard all of this before. On the ship coming here? In the hallways? In the dining areas where servants pretended not to see him? He was used to it. The meeting continued. Officers discussed patrol routes and supply lines. Teho listened and remembered everything, even though no one asked for his thoughts. That was his job. To watch, to wait, to be ready. When the meeting ended, the officers began to leave. They walked past Teho without looking at him, as if he was just another pillar in the room. Only Elder Sora paused. She looked up at his visor for a moment, and something like sadness crossed her face. Then she too walked away. Nari did not leave. She stood in the empty room and looked at Teho. Then she walked toward him, her steps slow and measured, like a predator circling prey. "You never speak," she said. "Are you forbidden? Or are you simply too stupid to form words?" "I speak when there is something useful to say, Commander." His voice came through the helmet speakers, flat and calm. Nari raised an eyebrow. "It talks." She circled him slowly, examining his armor from every angle. She ran one finger along a deep scratch on his shoulder plate. "What made this mark?" "A Keth warrior. 4 years ago, planet called Dustfall." "Dustfall," said the name like it tasted bad. "I have not heard of it." "It does not exist anymore." The Kith ate it. For a moment, something flickered in Nari's golden eyes. Then it was gone, and the cold smile returned. How tragic. And yet here you are, still alive in your little metal box. She stopped in front of him and tilted her head. Tell me, human, does it embarrass you? Standing here in that machine? While true warriors need only their minds and blades. Taeho was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I go where I am ordered, Commander. Like a good pet, Nari said softly. She turned and walked toward the door. Her silk robes whispered against the marble floor. The other humans are stationed in different cities, she said without looking back. You will stay here in the capital. I want to keep an eye on you. She paused at the door. I want to see what a human does when there is nothing to fight. When there is no enemy to shoot. When there is only time. She left. The door closed behind her with a soft click. Taeho stood alone in the beautiful room. The light through the crystal windows made patterns on the floor. Everything was quiet and peaceful and perfect. He thought about Dustfall. He thought about the people there running and screaming as the sky turned black with Keth's ships. He thought about holding a dying child in his arms while the ground shook. The Valari had never seen such things. They had been safe for so long that they had forgotten what danger felt like. They thought their beauty and their history would protect them. Forever Tae-Ho knew better. He stood his post and waited for whatever would come next. Days passed slowly on Valara. Prem Taeho learned the rhythm of the capital city. He learned when the streets filled with people and when they emptied. He learned which guards changed posts at which hours. He learned the sounds of the alien birds that sang in the garden trees. He also learned how much the Valari hated him. It started small. A servant who forgot to bring him food. A guard who blocked his path for no reason. Officers who stopped talking when he walked into a room. Small things. Easy to ignore, then it grew worse. One morning, a young Valeri soldier bumped into Taeho in a hallway. The soldier fell down and cried out in pain, even though Taeho had not moved. Other Valari came running. They helped the soldier up and looked at Taeho with anger in their eyes. The human attacked me, the soldier said. He pushed me. Taeho said nothing. His armor had cameras that recorded everything. He knew the truth. But he also knew that no one would watch those recordings. No one would believe him. Clumsy beast, someone muttered. They walked away. Leaving Taeho alone in the hallway, he reported the incident to Lieutenant Wan on the orbital station above the planet. Wan's voice crackled through the communication channel, tired and frustrated. Same thing is happening to the others, Wan said. Private Yuna in the eastern city had her food poisoned. Nothing deadly, just enough to make her sick for a week. Corporal Dasone was locked outside during a storm. His armor kept him alive, but barely. Should we request reassignment? Taeho asked. There was a long pause. The Coalition wants us here. The Keth swarm is getting closer every month. These people need protection whether they want it or not. Understood. Just be careful, Taeho. Don't give them a reason to hurt you. The channel went dead. 2 weeks later, Commander Nari sent Taeho a message. She was hosting a formal dinner for the military elite of Valara Prime. She wanted him to attend. Taeho knew it was not a friendly invitation. He went anyway. The dinner was held in a grand hall filled with golden light. Tables were covered with white cloth and silver plates. The food looked like art, colorful and delicate. Music played softly from somewhere Taeho could not see. Hundreds of Valari officers sat at the tables laughing and drinking wine that glowed faintly blue. Nari met Taeho at the door. She wore a gown of silver and black, and diamonds sparkled in her hair. You came, she said. She sounded pleased, like a hunter who had caught something in a trap. You invited me, Commander? I did. She smiled and pointed to a corner of the room, far from the tables and the food. You will stand there. I want everyone to see what the Coalition thinks of Valari security. A machine in the corner watching us like we are children who cannot care for ourselves. Taeho walked to the corner. He stood at attention, hands at his sides, visor facing forward. The dinner began. Valari officers ate and drank and told stories about their glorious ancestors. Some of them glanced at Taeho and smiled cruel smiles. Others pointed at him and whispered to their friends. One table started a game, trying to guess what the human looked like under his helmet. Probably ugly, someone said. All humans are ugly, short and fat, I bet. With tiny eyes like a cave creature. Laughter filled the room. Tejo stood still. He breathed slowly. He thought about the mountains on Earth, where he grew up. He thought about his mother's cooking. He thought about quiet things, peaceful things, things that had nothing to do with this room full of beautiful, cruel strangers. Then a young officer stood up from his table. He was drunk. His face was flushed blue, and he walked with unsteady steps. His friends cheered as he made his way toward Tejo.
Hey.
Let me see this famous human, the officer said loudly. Everyone turned to watch. He stopped in front of Tejo and looked up at the dark visor. Then he reached out and flicked the chest plate with his fingers. The metal made a dull sound. Is there even a real creature in there? The officer laughed. Or just gears and spite? The room erupted with laughter. Even Nari smiled, her golden eyes bright with amusement. The officer flicked the armor again, and again. Each time the room laughed harder. Something changed in Tejo. He did not get angry. He did not feel hurt. He simply felt tired. Very, very tired. He reached up and touched the seals on his helmet. The room went quiet. Click, click, click. The seals released one by one. Tejo lifted the helmet off his head. His face was not what they expected. He was not ugly or fat or strange. He was just a man. Young by Valari standards, maybe 30 years old. His skin was brown and weathered. His eyes were dark and deep, with shadows underneath them that spoke of sleepless nights. Old scars marked his jaw and his forehead. His black hair was cut short. He set the helmet on the floor. The room was silent now. No one laughed. No one spoke. Tejo reached for the seals on his gauntlets. Click, click, the gauntlets came off, fell to the marble floor with heavy thuds. He removed the arm plates next, then the shoulder guards. Each piece of armor dropped, with a sound that echoed through the silent hall. The chest plate was heaviest. Tejo unsealed it and pulled it away from his body. Underneath, he wore a simple black suit. Nothing special. Nothing impressive. Just cloth against skin. He removed the leg armor. The boots, everything. When he was done, he stood in the corner, wearing only his undersuit. He looked small now, thin, human. Just a man made of flesh and bone, surrounded by tall, graceful aliens who could live for 1,000 years. Nari's smile had faded. She stood up from her chair. What are you doing? Her voice was sharp. Tejo met her eyes. His face was calm, almost gentle. You have made it clear that my protection is unwanted, Commander. I will not stay where I am not needed. He stepped over his discarded armor and walked toward the door. His bare feet made soft sounds on the cold marble. The armor was not for me, he said quietly, without looking back. It was for what is coming. He reached the door and pushed it open. The night air rushed in, cool and smelling of flowers. Nara called out, "Guards, stop him." But Elder Sora stood up, her old voice cutting through the noise. Let him go. He has the right. The guards hesitated. Tejo walked through the door and disappeared into the night. For a long moment, no one moved. The armor lay in a pile on the floor, abandoned and empty. It looked like the shell of some dead creature. Then the whispers began. But no one was laughing. Anymore Tejo walked through the streets of the capital city. The night was cold, but he did not feel it. His mind was somewhere else, thinking about the message he needed to send. The streets were beautiful even in darkness. Soft lights glowed from tall buildings made of white stone. Fountains sang quiet songs in empty squares. The air smelled like flowers and rain. He found a communication station near the edge of the military district. It was a small building, simple and clean, with screens and controls that glowed blue in the darkness. A young Valari sat behind a desk, half asleep. He looked up when Tejo entered, and his eyes went wide. You are the human, the young Valari said. Yes. I need to send a message to the orbital station. What? The Valari looked at Tejo's undersuit. At his bare feet, at the absence of armor? Questions filled his eyes, but he did not ask them. He simply nodded and activated the communication system. Lieutenant Juan's face appeared on the screen. He looked worried. Tejo, what happened? Why are you out of armor? I left it, Tejo said simply. Lieutenant, I am requesting immediate evacuation for all human personnel on Valara Prime. Juan was quiet for a moment. Behind him, Tejo could see other officers moving, listening. All personnel. That is a big decision, Sergeant. Yes, sir. But I believe it is the right one. The Valari have made their feelings clear. They do not want our protection. If we stay, we will only cause more conflict. And when the real enemy comes, that conflict could cost lives. Juan rubbed his face with one hand. He looked tired, so tired. The Coalition will not be happy. The Coalition is not here, sir. They do not see what we see. They do not feel what we feel. Another long silence. Then Juan nodded slowly. I will send shuttles to collect everyone. It will take a few hours. Can you survive until then? Tejo almost smiled. I have survived worse, Lieutenant. The screen went dark. Tejo turned to leave. The young Valari at the desk spoke suddenly. Why? Tejo stopped and looked at him. Why what? Why do you humans do this? The young Valari's voice was confused, almost angry. You come to our world. You let us insult you. You let us hurt you. And now you just leave? Without fighting back? Without revenge? Tejo thought about the question. It was a good question, because revenge does not protect anyone, he said finally. We came here to help. If our help is not wanted, then we will go help somewhere else. There are many worlds that need us, but we treated you badly. Yes, you did. And you are not angry? Tejo was quiet for a moment. I am tired, he said. But no, I am not angry. Anger is heavy. It slows you down, and I have too much work to do to carry that weight. He walked out of the building before the young Valari could ask more questions. The shuttles came 4 hours later. 12 human soldiers gathered at the landing zone outside the city. They came from different posts all over the planet, each one carrying stories of insults and cruelty. Private Yuna, who still looked pale from the poisoning. Corporal Desong, whose armor showed marks from the storm. Sergeant Minho, who had a black eye from an accident that was not really an accident. They stood together in the cold morning air. Waiting, Tejo noticed that a small crowd of Valari had gathered to watch. They kept their distance, standing in groups near buildings and under trees. Their faces showed different things. Some looked glad to see the humans go. Others looked confused. A few looked almost ashamed. Elder Sora was there too. She stood apart from the others, wrapped in a gray cloak. Her old eyes watched everything. The shuttles landed with a rush of wind and noise. The doors opened. Lieutenant Juan stepped out. He wore full armor, and his face behind the visor was impossible to read. He looked at the 12 soldiers, then at the watching crowd. Are we ready? He asked. Yes, sir, Tejo said. Then let us go home. One by one, the soldiers walked toward the shuttles. The Valari crowd watched in silence. Then a voice called out, Human. Tejo stopped. He turned. Commander Nari walked through the crowd. She was not wearing her elegant gowns now. She wore a simple military uniform, and her face was hard to read. She stopped a few meters away from Tejo. You forgot something, she said. She held out her hands. In them was Tejo's helmet. The old scratched, dented helmet that he had left on the floor of the dinner hall. Tejo looked at it for a long moment. Then he looked at Nari. Keep it, he said. Something to remember us by? Something flickered in Nari's golden eyes. Surprise? Maybe. Or something else. The Keth swarm, she said slowly. You truly believe they will come here? I know they will, and yet you leave us unprotected. Tejo shook his head. You are not unprotected, Commander. You have your fleet. Your warriors. Your blades. He paused. You have everything except the one thing you truly need. The understanding that you might fail, that you might need help. That being strong does not mean being alone. Nari said nothing. Te-Ho turned and walked toward the shuttle. He climbed inside with the others. The doors closed. Through the small window, he watched Valara Prime grow smaller as the shuttle rose into the sky. The beautiful city became tiny, then invisible. The planet itself shrank until it was just a blue and green ball hanging in the darkness of space. Private Una sat next to him. She was young, barely 22, with short hair and tired eyes. "Do you think they will be okay?" she asked quietly. Te-Ho did not answer for a long time. "I hope so," he said finally. But hope is not a strategy. The shuttle docked with the orbital station. The human soldiers stepped out into familiar metal hallways, surrounded by familiar human faces. Someone brought hot food. Someone else brought blankets, for the first time in months. Te-Ho felt warm, but that night, lying in his small bed, in his small room, he could not sleep. He kept thinking about Valara Prime, about the beautiful buildings and the singing fountains, about Elder Sora's sad eyes, about the young Valari at the communication station who asked why humans did not seek revenge. He thought about the Keth swarm, spreading across the galaxy like a disease, eating worlds, ending civilizations. He thought about what would happen when they reached Valara Prime, and he knew, with terrible certainty, that he would go back. That when the call came, when the screaming started, he would put on his armor and return to the world that hated him. Because that was what humans did. They helped. Even when it hurt. Even when no one thanked them. Even when the universe told them to stop, they helped anyway. Te-Ho closed his eyes and tried to sleep. Tomorrow. There would be work to do. 2 weeks passed. Life on the orbital station was quiet and routine. Te-Ho trained with the other soldiers, fixed equipment, wrote reports that no one would read. The days blended together, like water mixing with water. Then the alarm started. It was early morning by station time. Te-Ho was eating breakfast alone in the small cafeteria when red lights began flashing on the walls. A voice came through the speakers, calm but urgent. "All personnel to battle stations. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill." Te-Ho dropped his food and ran. The command center was already full of people when he arrived. Officers stood at screens, their faces pale. Lieutenant Juan was in the middle of the room, shouting orders. "What is happening?" Te-Ho asked. Juan pointed at the main screen. Te-Ho looked. His heart went cold. The screen showed Valara Prime, beautiful and blue, floating in space. But the space around it was not empty anymore. Thousands of dark shapes filled the void, moving toward the planet like a swarm of insects moving toward fruit. The Keth had arrived. "They came faster than we expected," Juan said. His voice was tight, much faster. "The Valari fleet is engaging, but..." He did not finish the sentence. He did not need to. On the screen, bright explosions lit up the darkness. Valari ships, elegant and silver, fired their weapons at the Keth swarm. But for every Keth ship they destroyed, 10 more took its place. The alien vessels were not beautiful like the Valari ships. They were ugly organic things that looked like they had been grown rather than built. They moved with terrible purpose, ignoring their own losses, caring only about reaching the planet below. "The Valari are losing," someone said quietly. Everyone knew it was true. The battle continued for hours. Te-Ho and the other soldiers watched helplessly from the orbital station, which was too far away to join the fight. They saw Valari cruisers explode in silent flowers of flame. They saw Keth's ships break through the defense line and begin dropping toward the planet. Surface. Then the communication screens lit up with a new signal. Commander Neris's face appeared. She looked different now. Her golden eyes were wide and her face was pale. Behind her, alarms screamed and people ran in panic. "Coalition command," she said. Her voice shook slightly. "This is Valara Prime. We are under full invasion. Requesting immediate military assistance. Repeat, requesting immediate assistance." Lieutenant Juan stepped forward. His face was hard. "Valara Prime, this is Coalition Station 7. Your request is received." Paused. However, your government filed a formal complaint 3 weeks ago, rejecting human military presence on your world. The Council voted unanimously to remove all human soldiers from Valeri space. On the screen, Neri's face changed. Horror filled her eyes. That was. There were political considerations. We understand, Commander. A new protection detail requires Council approval. Estimated processing time is 6 to 8 standard weeks. We do not have 6 weeks. Nari shouted. We do not have 6 days. They are landing on our planet right now. Juan's face showed nothing. I am sorry, Commander. My hands are tied. You made your choice. The screen flickered. Behind Nari, a wall exploded. Dust and debris filled the air. She coughed and tried to speak, but the connection cut out. Silence filled the command center. Tay-Ho stood very still. He thought about the young Valari at the communications station, asking why humans did not seek revenge. He thought about Elder Sora's sad eyes. He thought about the beautiful buildings and singing fountains that were probably burning right now. Lieutenant, he said. Daunt turned to look at him. Permission to speak freely. Sir, granted. We cannot leave them like this. Juan's jaw tightened. They sent us away, Sergeant. They humiliated us. They poisoned our people, attacked our people, treated us like animals. Yes, sir. They did. And you want to help them anyway? Tay-Ho nodded slowly. That is what we do, sir. That is who we are. The room was quiet. Every soldier watched the two men. Juan closed his eyes. For a long moment, he stood there, breathing slowly. Then he opened his eyes again. If we do this, he said quietly, we do it alone. No coalition support. No backup. No orders. If we fail, they will call us fools. If we succeed, they will call us heroes. But either way, this is our choice. He looked around the room at the faces of his soldiers. Who wants to go save the people who hate us? One by one, hands rose into the air. Yuna, Disung Minho, all of them. Every single soldier in the room. Juan almost smiled. Then get to the armory. We leave in 1 hour. The soldiers moved like water breaking through a dam. They ran to get their weapons, their armor, their supplies. The station came alive with the sound of boots on metal floors. Tay-Ho reached the armory and found his locker. Inside was a fresh set of armor, painted the same simple gray as his old one. He put it on piece by piece, feeling the familiar weight settle onto his body. Sergeant Minho appeared beside him. He was a large man with a kind face and hands that could crush stone. You think we can really make a difference down there? Minho asked. Tay-Ho sealed his helmet. The visor came to life, showing information about temperature and oxygen and threats. 12 soldiers against thousands of Keth, Tay-Ho said. No, we probably cannot win. Then why go? Tay-Ho thought about the question, because if we do not go, who will? The galaxy is full of people who wait for someone else to help. Someone else to sacrifice. Someone else to die. He paused. We are those someone else's, Minho. That is our job. That is our honor. Minho was quiet for a moment. Then he laughed softly. You always know what to say, Sergeant. I've had practice. The soldiers gathered in the shuttle bay. 12 men and women in heavy armor, carrying weapons that hummed with deadly energy. They looked at each other, and in that look was something stronger than fear. It was purpose. Lieutenant Juan stood at the front. His voice came through all their helmets. Listen carefully. We are going to drop directly into the capital city. Our job is simple. Find survivors. Protect them. Hold the line until coalition reinforcements arrive. He paused. They may not arrive in time. You all know this. You all chose to come anyway. No one spoke. Right. When we land, stay close. Watch each other's backs. Remember your training. Took a deep breath. And remember why we fight. Not for glory, not for revenge, but because somewhere down there, someone is afraid. Someone is crying. Someone is praying for help. He pointed at the shuttle doors. We are the answer to that prayer. Now move out. The shuttles launched into the darkness of space, Through the windows, Teho could see Valara Prime growing larger, filling the sky. Parts of it were burning now. Great clouds of smoke rose from the surface, visible even from orbit. Entering atmosphere in 60 seconds, the pilot announced. Teho checked his weapon one more time. His heart was beating fast, but his hands were steady. Beside him, Private Yuna was praying quietly under her breath. On his other side, Corporal Daesun was humming an old song about soldiers returning home. The shuttle began to shake as it hit the atmosphere. Fire surrounded them, red and orange and white. Then they were through. Dropping toward a world at war, Tahoe looked down at the burning city below. "We are coming," he whispered. "Hold on, we are coming." The capital city was burning. Teho's shuttle landed hard in a street that had once been beautiful. Now it was covered with rubble and ash and things he tried not to look at too closely. Alarms screamed from broken buildings. Fires roared in the distance. The sky was dark with smoke and filled with the shapes of Keth dropships. "Move, move, move." Lieutenant Wan's voice crackled through the helmet speakers. The 12 soldiers spilled out of the shuttles. Weapons ready. They formed a defensive circle, scanning every direction for threats. The air smelled like burning metal and something worse. "I have movement," Minho reported. "East side. Many targets." Teho looked. Through the smoke, he could see shapes coming toward them. Keth warriors. They were terrible things, twice as tall as a human, covered in black armor that was also their skin. They had too many legs and too many claws and eyes that glowed red in the darkness. "Open fire." Wan shouted. The battle began. Human weapons roared. Bright lines of energy cut through the smoke and struck the Keith warriors. Some of them fell. Others kept coming, screaming sounds that were not quite sounds. Teho fired again and again. His training took over, making his body move without thinking. Duck. Aim, fire, roll, aim again. Fire again. A Keth warrior got too close, and he smashed it with the butt of his weapon, then shot it point blank. Private Yuna was beside him, small but fierce. She moved like water, flowing around attacks that should have killed her. Corporal Daesun fought like a mountain, standing firm while enemies broke against him. The first wave fell, then the second, then a third, but the Keth kept coming. Always more. Always hungry. "We need to move." Wan shouted. "Find survivors. Find shelter." The soldiers pushed forward through the ruined streets. They found Valari hiding in buildings under rubble and broken vehicles. Some were soldiers who had lost their weapons. Some were civilians who had lost everything else. "Come with us," Teho told them. "We will protect you." Some of the Valari stared at him with shock, others with shame. A few even cried. The group grew larger as they moved. 12 humans and 50 Valari, then 70, then 100. They fought through street after street, heading toward the center of the city where the bunkers were. Then the radio crackled with a new voice. Old and tired, but somehow strong. "This is Elder Sora. Can anyone hear me?" Teho answered. "Elder Sora, this is Sergeant Teho of the Human Expeditionary Guard. What is your location?" A pause. Then the human. "You came back?" "Yes, Elder. Where are you?" "The underground bunker beneath the council building. I have 300 civilians with me. But the Keth are breaking through our doors. We have no weapons. We have no soldiers. Hold on, Elder. We are coming." The council building was on the other side of the city. Between them and it was an army of Keth. Wan looked at Teho. Neither of them spoke. Neither of them needed to. "All units," Wan said over the radio. "New objective. Council building bunker. We push through everything in our way." "Sir," Minho said quietly, "we do not have enough ammunition for this, and we use our hands," Wan replied. "Move out." They pushed forward. The next hours were the worst of Teho's life. The soldiers fought through waves of Keth that seemed endless. They ran out of energy packs and fought with knives. The knives broke, and they fought with rocks. The rocks shattered, and they fought with their armored fists. 3 soldiers fell. Private J1, who always smiled. Corporal Boar, who sang old songs. Sergeant Park, who never talked but always listened. Taeho carried their names in his heart as he kept fighting. Finally, they reached the council building. The great doors were broken. Keth warriors were pushing through, trying to reach the bunker entrance below. Clear them out. Juan roared. The humans charged. They hit the Keth from behind, surprising them. In the chaos, they pushed the aliens back, filling the doorway with bodies. Get to the bunker, Taeho shouted to the Valari survivors. Now the civilians ran. The soldiers held the line. Minutes became hours. The sun moved across the sky, hidden by smoke. The Keth kept attacking, and the humans kept fighting. 9 soldiers now, then 8, then 7. Taeho lost track of time. He lost track of everything except the next enemy, the next swing, the next moment. His armor was dented and cracked. Blood ran down his face inside his helmet. He could barely lift his arms, but he did not stop. Then, just when all hope seemed lost, new sounds filled the sky. Not Keth ships. Something else. Something familiar. Human ships' coalition reinforcements burst through the clouds like angels of fire. They rained destruction on the Keth forces, burning them from the sky. Drop pods fell like seeds, bringing hundreds of fresh soldiers to the ground. The tide of battle turned. By nightfall, the Keth were retreating. By dawn, they were gone, fleeing back into space with what remained of their swarm. Valara Prime was saved, but the cost was terrible. Taeho stood in the ruins of the council chamber. His armor was barely holding together. 5 of the original 12 soldiers stood with him. The others were gone forever. Commander Nari walked through the rubble. She did not look elegant now. Her uniform was torn. Her face was covered with dust and blood. In her hands she carried Taeho's old helmet, the one he had left at the dinner party long ago. She stopped in front of him. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Nari did something that no Valari had ever done to another species. She bowed, deep and low, her forehead almost touching the ground. I mocked you for your armor, she said quietly. I called it primitive. I called you primitive. Taeho said nothing. She straightened and looked at him with eyes that held no more pride, no more cruelty. Only truth. I understand now. The armor is not a crutch. It is a promise. A promise that you will keep fighting, no matter how many times you are knocked down. No matter how little thanks you receive. She held out the old helmet. Humanity is not a lesser species. You are simply stubborn beyond reason. Behind his broken visor, Taeho smiled. It hurt to smile. Everything hurt, but he smiled anyway. Yes, Commander, he said. That is the idea. Took the helmet. It felt right in his hands, like an old friend returning home. Around them, the city was destroyed, but it would be rebuilt. It would rise again. And this time when it rose, it would remember. It would remember the 12 soldiers who came back for people who hated them, who fought and died for strangers who had mocked them. It would remember what humanity meant. Elder Sora appeared from the bunker entrance. She walked slowly, leaning on a young Valari for support. When she reached Taeho, she took his hand in both of hers. You asked me once, she said, what we would do when we needed help? When being strong was not enough? Taeho nodded. Now I know the answer. Her old eyes filled with tears. We would call for humans, and humans would come. She squeezed his hand. Thank you, Sergeant, for everything. Tae looked at the survivors gathering around them. Valari and human, standing together in the ashes of a broken world. Some were crying, some were laughing. Some were just breathing, grateful to be alive. He thought about Private J1's smile, Corporal Biora's songs, Sergeant Park's quiet strength. He thought about what they had given so that others could live. We will always come, Taeho said quietly. That is what we do. The sun rose over Valara Prime, red and gold through the smoke. A new day was beginning. A new understanding was being born, and somewhere in the galaxy, other worlds were learning the truth that Valara Prime had learned through fire and blood. When the darkness comes, when all hope is lost, when no one else will help you, the humans will come. They will always come.